Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shaukat Ali Khan, and I'm the Chief Information Officer at the Aga Khan University. I'm delighted to be moderating today's online public lecture on offensive cyber capabilities, the elusive spyware market. This lecture has been organized by the Aga Khan University in collaboration with the University of Central Asia and CyberPeace Institute, Geneva. I'm honored to introduce today's speaker, Stéphane Duguin, Chief Executive Officer of the CyberPeace Institute, Geneva, Switzerland. Stéphane leads the CyberPeace Institute with the aim of holding malicious actors accountable for the harm they cause. His mission is to coordinate a collective response to decrease the frequency, impact, and scale of cyber attacks by sophisticated actors. Prior to this, Stéphane worked at the European Union in technology leadership roles. He led key operational projects to counter cybercrime and online terrorism, such as the European Cybercrime Center, the Europol Innovation Lab, and the European Internet Referral Unit. Stéphane is a thought leader in digital transformation and convergence of disruptive technologies. His work has been published in major media. His expertise is regularly sought in high-level panels where he focuses on the implementation of innovative responses to counter new criminal models and large-scale abuse of cyberspace. All the participants attending via Zoom, please write your questions in the Q&A section, and all the participants attending via Facebook, please type your questions in the comments section. Stéphane will be answering your queries at the end of the session. With those words, please welcome Stéphane Duguin.
Thank you very much for this introduction. Thank you very much for having me, for inviting the CyberPeace Institute. In fact, that we are very pleased that we could co-organize this event, and thank you, Shaukat, for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here and to use at best, I hope, the time to discuss a specific issue that gained quite a momentum in the news lately, but sadly enough, it's not a new issue. And I would like to engage the audience around the question of offensive cyber capabilities with a specific focus on the usage of spyware against journalists, dissidents. I mean, this whole market of having on one end the private sector developing high-end spyware, we'll come back to that, and how is this really under control, under oversight by governments to be sure that there's no usage that are going blatantly against human rights. So if you would bear with me, I'm going to share some slides with the group. Give me just a small second. Share. I hope everyone can see my screen. Please.
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much for this. So, as I was mentioning, we like to focus on offensive cyber capabilities. Just a word on the CyberPeace Institute. So we are a non-for-profit founded in Geneva in November 2019. So an NGO with a global mission. We have strong principle of neutrality, independence at the core of everything that we do. And what we aim to do is looking into the societal impact of cyber attacks, because at the core of our mission is to provide assistance to the most vulnerable communities, the one with little capacity to defend themselves. Okay. So why CyberPeace and not cybersecurity, you could ask? It's because the state of play where you, me, everyone can enjoy security, can enjoy dignity, can enjoy equity in cyberspace goes beyond cybersecurity alone. In order to reach this state, beyond cybersecurity, you need to have a clear sense of accountability, that all the actors, and we are going to come back to that because accountability is central for offensive cyber capabilities, that all the actors are accountable for the action that they are handling in the cyberspace, and also at different level from industry to states, there's different responsibilities, but at least these responsibilities are known, they are documented, measured, and that citizen, people of the world, this is really the community that we want to serve, can be empowered with information to hold these actors, industry, states, you name them, accountable. How do we work? We have an interlink set of products and services from providing assistance. So we provide direct assistance pre-incident or post-incident, mostly to other NGOs that are really close to services of critical to human beings, like access to food, access to water, access to healthcare. We worked a lot in healthcare, access to energy, to information, to finance. So these are the ones that we help because they have little capacity to secure themselves against the threat that they are facing. For this, we provide also analysis, like forensic analysis of the attacks. And in this case, it's quite relevant because we have our own forensic capability independent in order to look into the modus operandi of such companies, such as we will mention one company, for example, NSO, or other company like Finfisher, so the one that are developing the malware. So it's forensic analysis to see how the malware works. And we make sure that what we learn from the field, the support that we provide to people, and the analysis of what we see is used by policymakers. So we try to advance discussion at international level when the laws and norms are discussed and negotiated at United Nations level, for example. And we do this having in mind what's going to happen next, what are going to be the new threats, what are going to be the new usage on the internet, and how this impacts the whole landscape. So I just mentioned already what we are doing. I will not spend more time on that. I would like to jump into the topic. So the link between offensive cyber capability and a de facto existing markets to sell spyware, not only to sell spyware, to develop, research, export, sell, implement, use spyware. And just sharing with you some thoughts in the sense that we see this as a systemic and very important threat to any idea of CyberPeace, with the definition of CyberPeace that I was providing before. So what are offensive cyber capabilities? So there's a large spectrum of them. So think about sophisticated malware, think about long-term disruption of physical infrastructure, and think about very targeted piece of codes in order to attack, there's no other word to say this, to attack human rights defenders, from activists to journalists to even, I mean, political figures. I mean, the spectrum of the one that are attacked is quite wide. So you have there in offensive cyber capabilities, attack tools, network exploitation tools, surveillance tool sets, surveillance suits, and a mix of activities to influence and to combat online content. How does it work? Modus operandi. So you have first an infiltration phase. It's very known, I mean, in the cyber field, infiltration, but before that, even we could start with reconnaissance. It's important to understand in which context your target is evolving. And when the reconnaissance is done, you go into the infiltration in order to gain access through different means. So on the slide, some example, but this is not only this. Maintain access when you're there. It's trying to stay as long as you can into the network. Again, an example with the remote access Trojans, but it's not the only way. There's several ways in this innovation scheme. Covering tracks to be sure that you cannot be detected. If you are detected, that the little footprint is left by the malware for forensic investigation. And of course, stealth data exfiltration. That's the whole aim of this tool. It's about surveillance, about monitoring, it's about getting, it's about transforming your phone, because we see that the phones are quite a huge part of the devices that are targeted, but transforming your phone into a portable spy. So you have everywhere, every time, a spy with you that is listening to what you're saying. So the mic can be monitored, taking the pictures that you're taking, reading your messages, everything is there. And because it's in the client, because it's in the phone, because it's in the computer, I mean, whatever type of encryption that you use becomes suddenly useless. So, and that it can also have some side effects to be sure that the control is enforced, is enforcing disruption. So trying to disrupt your capacity to use your services. And when you steal data, the capacity also to manipulate the data or live on the device or after extraction. Interestingly, we engaged with Atlantic Council not so long ago. Is one of our partners, and they have a quite good model in order to look into the offensive cyber capabilities. It's proliferation. Proliferation is really the central word. So it's a business model called that they define as access as a service. We share this with you because I think it's a good way to look into this. And they took some market space in order to assess this business model in between what NSO Group is doing and FIR is doing on dark matter. And you see this, it's about research of vulnerabilities, because these companies are living from the fact that they are putting a lot of vulnerabilities into their own buckets, waiting for the targets to be there and using one vulnerability after the other. And when one is suddenly patched, to use another one, to be at the top when it comes to intrusion and attack. Make sure that they have also the good capacity for the malware payload and development. So it's another stream of know-how that they are mastering and where they invest quite a lot of resources. Then the whole command and control capacity to be sure that you can have a network that is commanding and controlling your dissemination of malware, and capacity to manage your operations, and also, of course, training and support to their clients, etc. I think it's important now to give you an idea of the business model, which is companies, so private sector, developing these tools, researching these tools, putting these tools into the market, testing them, and then engaging with clients. And there the due diligence is a bit fuzzy. Who is responsible to know if the client is a good client or not, or the use that the client wants to do from the capability is going to be lawful? That's the big gray zone. And so then they export these tools to their clients in order for the clients to conduct surveillance. So there, I'll come back to that. And this market is growing under the assumption that everything that is developed and put out there is used to investigate crime and terrorism. I mean, which is a very valid cause. Don't make no mistake here. But at the end of the day, the reality shows that these tools are used in an opaque way in order to surveil journalists, activists, dissidents, political figures. So something is flawed in the process. And why it's flawed? Because when you have a private sector company in one country deciding to who to sell what, in which country, and then basically taking an ownership and a responsibility that normally falls into the hands of states, this is what is this is the logical outcome. So you have a self-regulated or semi-regulated market, and normally it's not the recipe for success. It's very opaque. Something like this, I mean, logically, when you have a good and an impressive capacity of surveillance from the states towards the citizen, it should every time be matched with the same level of capacity of surveillance and monitoring from the citizen to the state. So in this context, for balance to be sought, there should be a huge of oversight and huge transparency into the export and usage of these tools. To be sure that, and I go back one slide, to be sure that they are used there to investigate crime and terrorism only under strict judicial oversight, which clearly is not the case. And the customers of these companies, despite this claim of due diligence, in fact, are states with proven track records of human rights abuse. So it questions how due diligence are done. And of course, I go back to this comment is when you say crime and terrorism, it's really important to have clear definition. What is crime and what is terrorism, depending on who is selling and who is buying. So all in all, we have an unchecked market that is raising billions, that is very profitable. that has the capacity now to transform any phone on the planet into a spying device, and that is absolutely unregulated. So that's why we consider this in the CyberPeace Institute as a systemic threat to any ambition of CyberPeace. So, I mean, by now you got the model. It's about developing, maintaining, selling, and making sure that this offensive cyber capabilities are delivered to a third party to carry out attack, espionage, surveillance. And if we would focus on a very recent case, I guess most of you saw the Pegasus project. So it's really, it's a good example, but it's not only, and I don't want to say that this company, NSO in this case, is the one, and he's the one holding the market, not at all. He's one of many companies developing and selling this kind of malware. So what's happening, and we see this for each and every one of them, you have a complicated web of subsidiaries, you have a complicated financial setup, companies across the globe. It's very complicated to understand who is financing who and who is supporting the markets. Clearly, there's something that is at the core, which is quite interesting, is that, I mean, these companies are living from the sales, of course, but also from investments. A lot of investors are putting money into these companies. It's a message also to investors that we try to keep out there, is that each and every dollar, euro, whatever currency you want to use that is spent in this market is an investment against global cybersecurity. Because at the end of the day, these companies are only living from discovering vulnerabilities, not helping to patch these vulnerabilities, and making sure that you, me, everyone remains unsecure in cyberspace. That's the basis of everything. So it's interesting to have a model that is in fact going against, absolutely against, all the norms and laws that have been agreed at international level in between states. Because cybersecurity has been recognized by long as something interconnected and of use for all states to safeguard. And then, yeah, I mentioned what kind of target it was looking into. So we are very far away from criminal and terrorist. Legal framework, there's a legal framework in the sense that what should be put in place to combat this business model. So surveillance of individuals exercising their freedoms of expression is a violation of their human rights. I mean, it's quite clear. It has been mentioned again by the special rapporteur on the promotion and protection of the right to freedom of opinion and expression. And a lot of instruments, but we can have some additional conversation about this, are there to safeguard the right of people, their right to privacy, their right to freedom of expression, including when they use internet-connected tools. And states not only have a duty not to abuse this, but on top of that, a duty to protect individuals. So we have a dual responsibility of states when they need to put some oversight and control on these technologies. There's also a corporate responsibility. I was mentioning this before when it comes to cybersecurity, for example. There's corporate responsibility quite widely endorsed that we should make sure, I mean, as a community and corporation are part of it, that we do not spend time and money to get the internet less secure. So what is a potential, I mean, legally driven solution, but at least coming from the rapporteur I was mentioning, David Kay, and the CyberPeace Institute supports this approach, is to have a global moratorium on the sale and transfer of surveillance technology until human rights safeguards are in place. Because today, to continue with this model that is booming and expanding without any control, and with the pace at which technology progresses and the capacity for one company to deploy malware that can in fact survey thousands, millions, that's absolutely unbalanced in terms of the cost and benefit. If we go back to the ambition of fighting crime and fighting terrorism. Some pointers also for you to have in mind is that clearly it's infringes fundamental human rights. So it's always important to have that in mind when we look into what this market is fueling. And as I was mentioning, safety and stability of cyberspace is threatened. And what we see, I guess the last bullet point is interesting for you to have a look at, is an uncontrolled escalation of the production. And very lately, in fact, the United Nations, the group of government experts, issued a report of consensus in between states about what should be done and not done in the cyberspace. And the proliferation of malicious ICT tool is clearly, it's an agreement by all states that it should not happen. So, and strangely enough, states are buying these tools. So interesting to see the differences in appreciation depending on how we look at a question. Civil society so far, I must say, has a very strong role in order to investigate the misuse of these offensive cyber capabilities. So civil society, academia, I urge the audience to go on the latest report of Citizen Lab, one of our partners. They issued yesterday a report showing again a zero-click exploit on the Mac ecosystem, from iPhone to Mac themselves, to iPad, Mac OS, iOS, zero click. So basically, as soon as you are known by the attacker, they know your credentials, they're not the credentials, they know your phone number, they know your email, that's done. They don't need you to click on anything. They don't need you to open anything. They are just going to make sure that they can take full control on your devices. And I urge you to look into this. It has been published yesterday by the Citizen Lab, and also to, if some of you are using iPhones, in this case, it's a Mac ecosystem, update and patch urgently. Our role in this collaboration of civil society, so we provide actionable services. I was mentioning this in the beginning, to NGOs, and in the context of the Pegasus project, we join forces with our partners in order to help our beneficiaries, mostly NGOs, to test whether or not they've been attacked and to provide them support. So that's something that we do, and happy to discuss about this. We also call for action against the threats. You understood this. It's not only about helping the ones that are targeted, is making sure that we can drive for changes with the policymakers. So we joined, for example, a joint open letter that was organized by Amnesty International. And we also engage with other civil society to share knowledge, join forces. We, for example, participated to the coding of the digital violence platform that I also advise you to look into. This digital violence platform shows you visually the impact of these threats on victims. You will see their stories of victims, what is happening to them, and the whole chain of attack. So we have also for future reading if you're interested into this, but I hope it opens the floor for questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Stephane, very interesting. And there are a couple of questions already there because CyberPeace is something which is very, very interesting and relevant in the world we are living now. So I have received one question, which is how to approach CyberPeace in case an organization need help in their cyber attacks, or if they are hacked or something. Is there any platform where they can reach out, or what is the process for that?
Well, thank you for this. So CyberPeace Institute, I was mentioning, is an NGO in Geneva, non-for-profit, and we focus our support to the communities with little, if not zero, capacity to defend themselves. We are talking about NGOs, associations, communities that are so vulnerable because you have to compare their resilience with the capacity of the attackers. That is way bigger. So in this sense, most of the support that we provide is to NGOs, other NGOs, or to associations or activists, journalists. So we do not provide so much support to the private sector for a reason that it's normally part of the business model of the private sector to access some cybersecurity services. This being said, we are absolutely open for conversation with entities that consider that they've been attacked on the target by kind of tools that we are mentioning, and really happy to try to help them finding some sometimes for free support. I just give you an example. We are partnered with the Global Cyber Alliance, and the Global Cyber Alliance has a set of toolkits that we also helped putting out there and publishing and targeting. That is very, very helpful for small and medium enterprises, for example, in order to get this first level of resilience. So, all in all, very happy to be contacted and direct you or discuss with the colleagues. I will put the email of the institute in the chat.
Thank you. There's another question that is about the CyberPeace advice to the companies, because at the moment with the reliance on digitalization, more and more digital platforms are introduced. That means more and more connectivity is there. What is the advice from CyberPeace to the institutions to make sure that they are not the victim of cyber attacks? What are some of the basic things you want to advise?
Excellent question. Again, okay, there's a baseline of advice that are regularly shared, and I can only join the crowd there, which is awareness raising within your own staff. I mean, cybersecurity is a collective responsibility. If you don't have a culture in your company, in your group, in your NGO about the fact that this is out there, this is a threat, and these are the normal type of attacks that you're going to face, it's very complicated to hope that colleagues will not click one day on the wrong link. This takes time. You need to invest. At the end of the day, you need to invest time in training your colleagues, friends into being more resilient, understanding what it is. Again, there's a lot of free resources there. We can, Camilla, if you are with us, if you can post in the chat the toolkits, the summary of the toolkits that we reference in the CyberPeace Institute website. It can help already the audience, but there's more to that. On another level, for specific sectors, it's important to understand the specific threats that you're facing. And Camilla, again, if you can share the link of the analytical reports that we produced about the specificity of the threat on healthcare. There we made a deep dive analysis into what is happening to healthcare and what specific recommendation we can have for healthcare professionals or patients or government or civil society to secure the healthcare as a whole. So this also depends I would say, in which sector you are, but there's some bases that can be used by everyone. But in case you need something more targeted, we can also look into availability of data, or if we can look into something ourselves.
Thank you, Stephane. I have another question I have received, and that is about, is there any international body where institutions can complain if they are the victims? And what is the current situation from the law point of view? Is there any law which can protect and then which can help them if they are the victims of cyber attacks?
So that's a good one. I just posted in the chat a link to the toolkits, so you'll find a lot of them there. And if there's more questions, please don't hesitate to ask. To this last question, okay, we have to slice down cyber attacks to answer this question. You have attacks that are perpetrated by criminal groups, and you have attacks that are perpetrated or organized by states. And depending on who is attacking, the legal framework that a victim shall use to claim justice and redress is different. If the attack is more coming from the criminal sphere, I would say that for a victim is to go to law enforcement, the local law enforcement. In some region of the world, you have international platform to help for better exchange of information and making sure that these cases that in 99.99% of the case are cross-border, there's international cooperation to investigate them. And here I think about Interpol, I think about Europol, so agencies that have a strong know-how into how to organize this kind of cross-border investigation. But that's providing that it's a criminal activity. A well-known, mostly based criminal activity is ransomware. Big ransomware campaigns are, for most of them, issued by criminal groups, and it's a criminal response. So law enforcement, judiciary, from your local law enforcement to international cooperation. If there's hint of a state-sponsored attack, then suddenly it's different, because there the body of law that is to be looked into is more international law. It's more what is happening in terms of sovereignty, and that's when it starts becoming a bit more fuzzy. Because at the end of the day, these attacks that are states against states, and at the end of the day, they make victims, like civilian victims. What states are doing together when they discuss about this attack is not so much helpful, history showed, to victims. The attribution is seldomly backed up with data that victims can use in order to claim their right. And so that's more the scenario that's complicated.
I think we have received a very long question on social media. I think I will post it to you, and then maybe you can answer afterwards. I think there are some details, and then they have given us some further details on one of their cases. So my next question, the short one, is about the specialization. One of the questions the institutions are asking and struggling to find right cybersecurity experts. And this is I think challenge overall. So they're asking about your suggestion about where to find experts in cyber attacks. I don't think so this is in your domain, but if you want to comment, then you're welcome.
No, with pleasure. The shortage of talent in the cyber field is a known issue. Okay, I can give some pointers here. First, I don't have any solution. If I would, I guess people would know by now, but what we put in place, having this little capacity broadly of cybersecurity in mind, is putting in place a service that we call the CyberPeace Builders, where we connect with corporations where cyber capacity is there. And it's cyber, it's a wide range. It can be from data protection expertise to cybersecurity expertise to awareness raising expertise. It's not exactly the same. Everyone is in cyber, but it's not the same jobs. So we engage with corporations, and a lot of them are willing to, on top of their daily business, to help. They want to help the community, and they want their staff to get a meaning into the actions that they do every day. And we offer the capacity for these companies to access projects, assistance projects that we organize. So then their staff have the capacity to be useful to help an NGO that is active in the field in a part of the world what is at war or almost at war, and in order, to be sure that this NGO are going to get the proper service, because this NGO is servicing civilians. And that's a way to cope with the shortage of knowledge. It's to pool the knowledge from different capacity and make it useful where civilians need this the most. So that's our very practical answer from one side of the story, but for sure, the CyberPeace Institute will not solve the shortage of cyber talent in the world.
Thank you, Stephane. We have another question. Do you have studies or assessments that provide benchmarks for organizations in terms of their annual spending on cybersecurity with reference to their overall annual budgets?
It's a good question. In the report that has been just pasted before, so our report on healthcare, I use this as an example because it's telling. We looked into this. We looked into how much healthcare organization was spending in IT, and out of IT, how much was spent in cybersecurity. And we could see that in healthcare, it's way less than what is spent in other industries like finance, for example, the financial industry. So there's some figures that are available. Please don't hesitate to send us back this question, and we'll find some good pointers with pleasure. And when it comes to proactive security assessment for organization, it's yes and no at the same time. We do it, yes, for, I was mentioning it before, NGOs. So, or for organizations which are supporting NGOs, like financing NGOs, this we engage a lot. We invest a lot of resources. When it comes to the private sector, it would be very, very exceptional. It would depend on the mission of this entity and what would be its reality. So, our scarce resources, and we go back to the shortage of talent, is focusing on NGOs.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I think this is very, very helpful for our audience. And then a lot of new things are happening. And then thank you for sharing all the links. They are available, and we can also post it on social media. So we have recorded this session, and soon all the participants will be able to see on the YouTube channel of University of Central Asia and other social media forms. So thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you, CyberPeace Institute, University of Central Asia. It's a pleasure working with you, and we look forward to have many more engagements like this in the future. Thank you very much, all the participants, for your time, and on the people who are watching us on social media. Thank you, and have a very nice afternoon. Bye-bye.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very, very much. Thank you for your question.